while back we did a video where, it was titled something like Engineers Take a Look at the Apple AirPod Max or something, and a lot of people watched it, and it was because we come at it as engineers, I guess, and designers. When we look at something, we come at it from a different angle. We see it from a different angle. Kind of like when you did a video a while back on opening refrigerator doors, right? And it's like,
I'm supposed to do another one of those.
Yeah.
Well, people need to tell me what I need to do it on.
But I mean, it's something to discuss because it's kind of, when you think about it, when people see things from their various angles depending on their whatever their education is, right, so to speak, or skill sets or knowledge base or what have you. And it's kind of neat to think about how people perceive the same thing differently, even though it's the same thing.
Yeah, we clearly look at things very differently from the average consumer. If you look at what the average person says about a product when they're talking about just receiving it or reviewing it or whatever, typically they're not talking about how it's manufactured, why it's made a certain way, or things like that, the coatings, the finishes, the regularity, the packaging. They're talking about more in context of their experience and just the general aesthetics, the feel of the product, not the hows and the whys, I guess.
Yeah, like some people they'll have box openings or whatever.
Unboxings.
Yeah, unboxings, right? And they're taking a look at how everything comes out the box and all that stuff. And I think from an engineering perspective, you probably wouldn't even think too much about that. You're like, basically you want to get the damn thing out of the box and take a look at the piece, right? You're not worried about the packaging.
Well, I'd be more concerned about how the cardboard's manufactured and whatnot.
Sure, right. Yeah, does it look like it would hold up?
Whether or not it has coatings on it.
Will it protect it?
Yeah. How thick the foam is what type of foam they use for the sides.
And some people do care about that in the unboxing videos. They're like, oh, this is well packaged so it won't get damaged.
Some do, yeah. But they tend to be focusing on like one thing.
Yeah.
Or a few things where... But I think the majority of people probably just want to get the damn thing out of the box.
Well, some people like to savor the unboxing, especially on like a high-end product. It's like,
I guess.
Take your time,
Yeah.
That's not me. I like get out of the box as fast as possible.
I want to get the white cover off the thing and let's get it hooked up and go right to it.
Yeah.
So I guess, you're right. Everyone's probably different in that respect. But see, that's what my point is that, like, when you think about it, how everyone has a different perspective on the same thing. They see it differently from all different kinds of angles. And you see that in discussions, like, where they get their first AB 1266. And usually the first thing they're saying is like, whoa, this thing sounds really good type thing. That's usually the first thing. Or some people do. I know in some countries, like in Germany, they're like, this thing's really built well. So they do. The first impression tends to be varied depending on who the person is that's taking a look at it, which is kind of wild.
For sure.
I know, like, from a manufacturer's standpoint, I see other manufacturers at shows and stuff, and they're always looking at products from how it's built and such. They're not, only focusing on sound. They're, like, looking at the construction and everything of the products, checking out finishes, because they're...
Like touchy-feely?
They know when they're building their product, like, how hard it is to get the finishes and stuff they want and fit and finish and stuff. So I see the manufacturers key in on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then one time we had one guy, and he was looking really intently at a 1266, and I went over to go talk to him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a machinist. I was just wondering how this was built." So he comes at it from a more of a manufacturer's kind of perspective, of wondering how it was built and knowing how it could have been built. So definitely machinists. They usually come at it from.
I know I've seen that in the past too. Like years ago, we doing a show, and there was a amp manufacturer came into our room, and which happened to have another amp manufacturer, and they knew each other, but both tube amps happened to be. And she's looking at it going, how do you make these things so inexpensive? Because they're relatively good value for the price from the one manufacturer. And he's like, well, we're in the state we're in isn't really expensive to hire people, and we keep things lean and blah blah blah, and she's like trying to figure out how is it, because she's obviously figuring out why is it we can't make something and sell it, retail it for this price that they do and at this quality.
You see a lot of that. It seems like most manufacturers, when they're looking at a competitor or a similar product on the market, they're trying to understand how this product compares to them, whether or not they're running into the same challenges. And I think the reason for that is really simple because at least a good manufacturer, designer really understands that you need to try to continually iterate, continually improve your product and push the boundaries of what's possible. And a lot of times getting the finishes perfect, getting the price as low as possible is really a priority. And the consumers don't really see this, but of course manufacturers want the price to be as low as possible. They want it to work the way they expect, but they also want it to be as affordable as possible so they can get it in the hands of more people, because higher price stuff doesn't sell as much, right? It's harder to sell. So everyone wants a really nice product, but they want to be able to do it in a way that's cost effective. So everyone's always kind of looking for a cheat code, so to speak, seeing how did they get this done? Did they have the same problems I have with fit and finish or getting these parts to match and things like that? You see a lot of that. So it seems like when someone's examining a product, they're kind of looking to see, are they having the same issues that I'm having, right? How did they solve these issues?
Yeah,
how can I use lessons to overcome them?
A simple thing like a pen, from an engineering perspective, right? You're looking at it 100 different ways, the springs and the shapes and how they molded it and assembly and if it's going to last, right? The consumer, they're going like this and they start writing. And that's it, how it feels, right?
Right.
It's a completely different take on the same product, the same thing. They're not worried about how it's made. They expect it to work.
Well, yeah.
Where you, on the other hand, need to worry about every little thing, to make sure that it will work. And that's my point, is like, you look at the way people perceive any object or anything any purchase they make, completely different takes on it.
Well, I think the biggest thing is like cell phones these days. They all look the same on the outside now, but it's all the stuff on the inside that you don't see that they're changing that's actually making the difference,
Yeah, the outer shapes are so simple now.
Yeah, it's just a big screen
They're all
now,
rounded with a screen.
But
and
they're changing all
touch.
kinds of stuff on the insides.
Yeah.
So
They serve a similar end function, but they approach it in a very different way.
And the feature sets are just so wildly, there's so much to know about any one particular phone.
All the hardware is different, but they accomplish the same goal.
Yeah, right. You can still make a call.
Yep.
It has range. It doesn't break up when you go anywhere. Almost all of them work now in pretty much any setting, at least in the U.S. It's not a real issue with range like it used to be back in the day where you'd have issues. I'm sure there's some rural areas and so on in there.
Yeah.
probably.
But for the most part, the cellular networks are so well built out that these things you expect them to work everywhere.
But there's a bit of bias there, because you're only really seeing the commercial successes that are available to you as a consumer. When you go to a store,
That's true.
you see the stuff that the store is willing to carry, the stuff that already is working. It isn't always the case in hi-fi. In hi-fi, a lot of times the volumes are so low, you could find some really obscure niche products.
Yeah, if you're the first 100 buyers or something, depending on the company, you may be one of the guinea pigs. You may be. It depends on how refined the company is and how long they've been around. A brand new company with their first product, you don't know. It depends on how long they worked on it, how long they weeded out the bugs.
Even still.
I've seen a lot of that in audio over the years, like he just suggested. You don't know. It could be their first amplifier they've ever built. And some people are excited to get that first amplifier.
Yeah,
they want
something
to hear
new,
it.
different.
Absolutely.
And that's okay. They're not, and again, that person's not worried about the build because they figure they can fix it. They can make it work, but so be it. So, but again, that's the consumer side of it. And the average consumer is just looking at it going, I can't wait to hear this. I can't wait to listen to it.
Right.
It's the first one, and I've been hearing really good things about this guy, what this guy can do. So it's a different take on it. Where you and me would want to pop the cover, look at it, go, Jesus, what the hell's going on in here?
How'd they get it done?
Yeah, right. They didn't. Obviously, you could have done this, and this. It would have made it a lot easier assembly. I mean, you look at it from a standpoint of how easy to assemble, disassemble, repair, right? Where the guy to put it together might not think that far ahead because they haven't fixed one yet, because they haven't made one yet.
The things I often find most interesting on products is the thing that nobody ever talks about. It's typically the stuff that someone at that company that designed it is worried about. Because inevitably, the average consumer is totally blissfully unaware of this typically. But in almost every product, any crazy consumer product, doesn't matter how cheap, mundane, meaningless, something in the process, someone that designed that is worried whether or not it's going to work, whether or not it's going to be robust, reliable, serviceable, long-term, whether it's machine that makes this thing
You
is
would
going
hope
to
they
work. Right?
You'd hope someone's worried about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, even in that pen, there could be a handful of things in there that someone, when they design it, they said, we don't know if this is going to work.
Oh, I bet
Because they're
they
doing it in a way that's so cheap.
I bet
to
they
try
made a
to save
machine
costs.
just to click this thing like X amount of times. Say okay,
Right, and that's
it
how
should
you
probably,
prove it to yourself.
It should probably click twice as many times as it's anticipated in its lifetime would need to be, or some percentage above, so that they know the failure points outside the range of usage. Right.
Right, because until somebody proves it, until somebody comes out, does a thing, and skips a step that is totally meaningless to the end result, and proves to everybody else that you actually don't need to do this process that everyone else thought you did, everyone's reluctant to skip it because they're worried. They're worried, hey, there's going to be problems with our product and we're going to lose credibility. But inevitably, someone decides to take the plunge. They make a test rig and they go through the effort of proving to themselves that you could do it without doing that. That's the stuff that I find interesting. There's a lot of stuff like that where occasionally there's like a crazy trivial difference from one product to the next, and they figured out a step that they can get rid of, and it has no impact to the performance or the lifespan of the device.
Well, I think the ultimate example of this is any space-related things. You know, all those engineers, they're all really smart, right?
Yeah.
You know? And they're usually worried until they see things like, land on Mars. They're not, they're worried the whole time, even though they tried their hardest. And it's not even a cost constraint with that. It's usually a mass constraint, so they're trying to make everything as light as possible while still working.
It's the unknowns.
And if it's never been done
There's
before.
a lot of unknowns.
Well, when you design it, you know everything that could go wrong, typically. And so you're always worried,
you hope so.
What if this happens? What if that happens? It's not going to be able to tolerate it in these particular situations.
Right.
You're always worried about the
you
failures.
couldn't build it to tolerate that because it would require
it wouldn't work.
a million other steps and 600 kilograms more of weight, and you couldn't do it. So there are risks involved, sure.
As a consumer product, we talked about this before, but you can make a coat hanger that's $20. That's the most amazing coat hanger ever.
A quarter-inch steel.
But nobody's going to buy it, right? You're going to sell 2 of them, so it's meaningless. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
The things have to be attainable. And
It will last forever.
Everyone tries to work to make their product as attainable as possible, but it depends on where you are. If you're in the upper range, sometimes it's just really difficult to make things affordable.
Bottom line, when you're making something simple as this, you have to be practical.
Right.
You have to. In the higher end of things, we don't have to be practical.
Well, you can be less practical.
Because at some point you're saying, all right, well, let's just throw everything at it, and what it costs, and that's the price. So
there's so many different tiers to that.
Yeah, true. But you could do that in the high end. It's kind of like a Rolex watch, right? It's like, well, let's make this watch band out of solid gold. Who cares? Whatever the price is, that's the price.
Yeah, Apple's not doing that on their watch.
Yeah, no,
making it out. Well, they did. They did make a gold one, but they kind of stopped making them.
In the comments, if you guys want, give us something what you look at when you first get a product. Like when you first get something, open it up, headphone, whatever. What do you look at? I'm just curious. I'd be curious to know, share ideas, because I don't think about it. Even us manufacturers, we don't really talk much amongst each other about differences in each other's products. It's kind of like you think about it, but you don't say it.
Yeah, you're just looking at it.
Yeah, it'd be cool to hear what everyone looks at when they get something new.
Yeah, it's definitely different from the consumer-facing side.
Yeah, it would be cool. So I'd like to have an open discussion on that one. I think it'd be interesting to everybody, and we'll try to comment as much as possible from our side too. So on that note, thank you everybody for watching, and give us a thumbs up on this video, and take care of yourselves.